Christmas and the holiday season can really be hard. And when you're a kid, Christmas and holiday season is, for a lot of folks, at least for me, was a magical time and it was super exciting. And Christmas is still one of my favorite holidays. But as an adult, things change. And I remember people talking about that the holiday season, especially when I was younger, can be very hard for older folks. Well, now I'm one of those older folks. And today while I was driving my kids to school, it's their last day of school before holiday break. And they are super fired up about Christmas and the holidays and their school party and all the things that are tremendously fun. And we do all the traditional things. So we've got the house decked out. We've got family coming into town, but my parents are older and, they're in the later stages of their life. And I hope they live a long life, but I'm also aware that they're in their 80s. And so I don't know if they'll be here for next Christmas, but I hope they are, and I hope they're optimal, and I hope they're vital, and I hope they're, themselves. But I don't know that that's going to be true, which I digress. So anyhow, I'm taking the kids to school. I'm in the holiday spirit. I want to get them amped up for their holiday party. And so I put on Christmas music. And I also know that when I listen to Christmas music, I can become emotional. And so I intentionally did not put on the songs that I know are going to trigger me emotionally. But it turns out there are no songs that don't trigger me. So we put on Joy to the World and we're driving to school and they're all fired up and I'm listening to these words and I'm listening to these songs that I don't typically listen to, and I start getting really emotional and I can feel my eyes welling up. I can feel all of these memories that I don't typically think of. And I'm pivoting back to my childhood and I'm pivoting back to my parents being much younger. And I'm thinking of all the people who are no longer here in our lives anymore. And then I'm projecting into what the future looks like. And I'm just a mess. So they're not unaware of this reaction. So they, I think, enjoy watching me get emotional because I rarely get emotional like this, but it's what happens. So I'm going to share it anyway. And so I get emotional and I pivot from the first song we listened to was Faith Hill, Joy to the World, and I'm a Disaster. And then we pivot to a Taylor Swift song, which I thought would be safe because I don't know any Taylor Swift lyrics. My kids know all the lyrics to all the songs, but I don't know any of them. So I thought this would be safe ground. But it turns out that her song and her voice and the messaging and everything around it is so good that I'm even worse emotionally than I was on the last song. And I'm just a disaster. And I'm talking boohoo crying. My eyes are all blown out. My face is all messed up, distorted. And I'm not a crier. I'm not emotional like this. But I'm thinking of my grandma. I'm thinking of my relatives who are no longer with us. And then I'm thinking about my parents and them not being with us in the future. And all of these things. And then realizing that at some point I'm going to die too, and I won't be here for Christmas for my kids. And it's just a disaster. And I'm circling the toilet emotionally and I'm going downhill fast. And then it occurs to me, stop, Chris, to put on a different song. And so I did. So I pivoted to Run DMC, Christmas in Hollis. And I love that song. Also, 0% chance that I'm going to have an emotional response to it because it's such a fun, upbeat song, and I got myself back on track. And so I did not want to be a disaster emotionally as I dropped the kids off, and I wanted them to know I'm fine, which they did. But as we pull into the school parking lot and I'm getting ready to drop them off, my youngest daughter, who believes, and I believe too, right? But anyhow, she says to me, Daddy, can I ask you, or can I tell you something? I said, of course, sweetheart. And she says, I'm gonna change the name. A girl in school who sits next to me told me that there's no such thing as Santa Claus and that you're Santa Claus. And when I tell you, my response to this was, I was so effing furious at this kid who decided that they wanted to share what they think they know the day before holiday season, or before Christmas break starts. I was furious. And when I was at my angriest, and when I was really letting myself get out of control with my anger, I asked myself the question, how is it possible that everybody in this school can play pretend that one of the students who was a boy and is now pretending to be a girl, well, everybody can buy into that fantasy and everybody allows that lie to be true. And yet some little jerk is gonna tell my kid that there's no such thing as something, or that they don't believe it's true. But because it's cool to indulge a fantasy in one place, it's not okay to indulge a fantasy in the other, when the spirit of one is definitively true, is beyond my comprehension. And I was furious. And it occurred to me that the best gift that Santa could bring those kids' parents was perhaps some broken legs. And then I thought to myself, I wasn't really interested in Santa bringing me multiple felonies and a jail term. So I got myself out of that mindset. But I certainly wasn't happy that I had to think about or experience any of these things right before holiday break starts. So I said some very inappropriate things that I'm not going to share here, but the main point was, that kid's an effing moron, and if you don't believe in Santa Claus, well then, Santa's not coming. And thankfully, my eldest daughter was very quick to respond similarly to how I did. But the good news is my youngest believes with all faith and confidence, and it wasn't a big deal for her. She just moved on to the next thing. But I was furious, and I wanted to choke somebody out. I was really angry. And I suppressed all that. I got to the point where I dropped them off, and it was so cute. My youngest daughter came back into the car because she forgot her Rudolph nose and her reindeer ears, and she's all dressed up and ready for the best day ever. And so it will be the best day ever. It will be the best Christmas ever. But when the door closed, well, when I saw how cute she was, and I saw her belief and her excitement and her joy, and I felt all those things as she came back to get her stuff and then closed the door. When the door closed, I was just overwhelmed with emotion, and I was bawling. Who would ever say that 2 days before Christmas? And whose parents would allow them or not instruct them not to give away or share whatever they happen to think about Santa Claus or Christmas? Who in God's green earth would do that? And I was furious. And then I started to really go downhill, and I'm like, I'm gonna figure out who it is. I'm gonna call the parents. I'm gonna rip them a new one, and all these basically insane things that I thought about doing. I'm not gonna do any of those things. And it is the birth of Christ. It is the celebration of Jesus being born. It's Jesus's birthday. So it's not particularly Christian or forgiving or graceful for me to go down this rabbit hole of anger, resentment, and potential payback. None of that makes any sense and is completely the opposite of what the Christmas spirit is. So I did course correct. But For a moment, I did have an anger relapse, and I'm a dad, and I'm human, and I make mistakes, and thankfully I have enough sense to think before I do something insanely stupid. But thankfully, the AI isn't so good enough yet to be able to read what we're thinking, and I can think whatever I want to. And I get to choose how I want to feel. And I definitely didn't want to continue to feel the way I was feeling. It is the holiday season, and you know what? It's hard sometimes. The reality of what the holiday season is has changed for me as I've gotten older, and I get to embrace the fact that I do have my parents here. I do have my family here. I do have so many different blessings that I get to experience right now. So I will stay focused on those things and not look backwards or project into the future, because that's always a loser, right? So that is what I intend to do. It will be the best Christmas ever. I hope it is for you and your family too. And I'll catch you on my next video.